Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 7 pod of the FPL Wire. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Late Riser and Pras. How are you doing, guys?
Pras, how's everything going?
Don't ask, man. I mean, it's not ideal that we're potting on Tuesday, so the wounds have not healed completely from Sunday. Just one of those weeks, we don't really talk about past game weeks, but this one it hurt a lot. I mean, how close we were we were bigging up Trippier since preseason, right? Remember the statement, Trippier is Trent in a good team or a good defense. Then game week 5, I was waiting for Trent to drop in price so I can go Saliba to Trent. Doesn't happen. Last week, I do an early transfer to get Alvarez so I can afford Trippier. No one asks the question from Poch on whether Chilwell should start or not. I don't do the hit, and then you take a 14-point hit. It is in 14-point variance on not doing the transfer. It was brutal, but it's fine. It's the game.
How close were you on
I was ready
Saturday?
to. This is why I did the Alvarez transfer early. I had exact money to do it, and I'm just waiting for quotes on somebody tell me that Chilwell is not going to start, because the chance he starts, he's playing left wing or he's playing left back, so it doesn't sound. Basically, I was going with Chilwell and Diaz instead of Trippier and Botman. And you think Chilwell, he got the one-on-one chance. If he starts, he can get a goal. So I think he is okay. And then you have Botman. When does Botman ever score? He's never scored for Newcastle. So first ever goal. So
First ever goal because he had bad luck. I will mention that before we do that. But you know what? You mentioned the whole Trippier thing. I don't feel particularly bad. I don't think Zoph feel particularly bad because you were around and picking up Trippier, and that was the foremost transfer target that you had for the last 5 weeks. Genuinely, everything that you were saying was planned around this. So I genuinely do feel bad for you because I knew amongst us, you were the closest.
So many people have messaged me saying, you guys, this pod bigged up Trippier. That's why we got it. So I guess we achieved the objective. And I guess nobody wants to hear more tales of woes. But this is the season, man. I mean, this is the season where all of these picks, 15, 16 picks are good picks. And you will have about 10 of them. In weeks like last week, we started the pod saying, guys, that's not a bad week because everyone did bad. This week, for some people, was a bad week because you had the guys who didn't do well. And there were some people who popped off. Basically the Mitomas, the Fodens, the Sakas, the Suns, and obviously the Newcastle defense. So this was it. This was the variance week.
Good week for you, Anand.
Yeah, decent week for me. I do want to talk a little about the macro conversation around philosophy of FPL and everything.
I think we've lost him again. He was having some connection issues.
Yes. Okay.
It's fine now.
You guys
give it a go. Then maybe we'll try it a little bit later if it drops again.
All right. No, so what the point I was trying to make is one of those FPL philosophies that I had previously and were evolving, as the game goes on, is if you're trying to get a big player, always get him at the start of the good run so that the probability of you catching the haul is the biggest. So I'm worried about that because that sort of contradicts, because I think this season, losing 4 points, taking a hit is a big deal. I want to avoid taking a hit because we've seen so many people get burnt when they're selling players also, because you're selling good assets because there's so many good assets. So there's a little bit of a confusion in terms of how you should actually play. What's your stance on that?
Russ?
Well, I didn't take the hit and it backfired. So some weeks it works, some weeks it doesn't work. But then in my case, you can argue I was taking a hit to take out a bad player in Chilwell for a good player in Trippier. So maybe I should have done it. But was Chilwell a bad player? I think we know much more now than we did on Friday. Some people will argue that we knew then as well. So, but I generally agree. I also agree that hits are dangerous because it's a difficult game. There's 500,000 engaged managers. You're giving away points by losing good players for good players. Yes, it can backfire, and then you sort of leverage the loss. And so it's even more if you've taken a hit to lose a good player.
What was your thinking behind your transfers, LR? I know you had your decision was to either do Jackson to Alvarez or the defensive transfer, which you ended up doing Chilwell to Botman. If I was in your shoes, I would have done 10 out of 10 times the Jackson transfer out. Don't you agree, Pras?
I do. And I had the choice and I did the same.
So what was your thinking there,
I,
LR?
I mean, you guys knew on the pod, I hadn't lost faith in Jackson. I genuinely hadn't lost faith in Jackson. I think the underlying numbers are there. And while I was having FOMO for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have been sort of ignoring my defense, which I think is weaker than my attack. Like, given the fixtures, I thought my attack could maintain and go through. And there's never that stronger FOMO because you're captaining Haaland, right? So I wasn't too worried. I was like, what's the worst? And I chased Sterling, then I chased Son, then I didn't want to chase Alvarez because I feel like I needed to fix my defense. I needed to get a steady guy in there. That's why I just went with that move. In fact, I was closer to doing Chilwell plus Saliba to Botman plus
Right, he's dropped.
He's
But
dropping
he,
again.
yeah, so
think
he had the same hit in mind. I think a lot of people were in and around. But with Newcastle defense, the thinking was if you get here now, you do it last week. But we'll talk about this week. Now you're looking into, okay, Burnley at home is great, but then they have West Ham. Then you will wildcard. So I don't see myself getting any Newcastle defense now, which is completely terrifying. But this is what it is. I mean, you tell me, how was your sort of wildcard and what did you feel during the week?
I think it was worth it just to get rid of my Chelsea players. I don't have any hair left to lose, so I can't even pull my head out while watching Chelsea. So this time watching Chelsea was frustrating, but not excruciating. Because every time they get near the box, because I pretty much know they're not going to score. It's always worse, right? When you own the guy in FPL, you want them to score a little bit more. Obviously, you support your club, but when FPL comes into it, you want it a little bit more. So I was happy not to just have that. In terms of points, I think I was up by 6 points. Primarily because of the Newcastle defense, that's assuming I would have done Jackson to Alvarez. And the thing is, my wildcard, very honestly, wasn't optimized really for this week. That is more optimized for a longer run with the Villa guys, etc., etc. So I'm just happy to sort of churn along the next 2 weeks because Salah probably isn't a essential pick for the next two. But then from game week 9, he's a big one. So I'm happy to plod along for the next two and then see how it goes.
And in terms of like anything that you would change now that you have one more week of information, what in terms of what your picks were in defense, in midfield, any I don't want to say regrets, but now that you have one more week of information, would you change anything?
Probably Rashford to Son, because I'm noticing something different for Rashford, but it's a very small sample size. And he's just not shooting as much. I don't know, because of Rasmus coming into the team, the dynamic is a little bit different, right? With Marshall, Rashford was a primary goal threat. Marshall was just a decoy. Now with Rasmus, maybe he's been told to pass more or they're adapting to each other, but I'm not seeing as much goal threat. And in general, United, from what I saw in the Burnley game, they're a little bit afraid to commit too many players forward. So in which case, I think probably could have gone with Son. Maybe I should have left a little more money in the bank. But the thing is, when you have your wildcard, it's very tempting when you have the exact team you want and it's 0.0.
Yeah.
Like, let me do that. Rather than you think, oh, I might need some money for the future, keep some money aside. Like, for example, the burn to share move is one I did at the last second. It didn't pay off this week, but over the next 5-6 weeks, that could come around. But if I had to make...
Burn goes on and scores the first goal.
First goal, right? So that's just variance that happens, classic stuff. But if I had to make the decision, I would pick share every day of the week.
Exactly.
So that's just things you have to live with. Let's do a sponsor plug. Hopefully, LR gets back with us soon.
Sure.
First up, Fantasy Football Scout. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Football Scout network who have supported us from our start, and all the data you see on the pod is from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Please sign up using the affiliate link in the description below. We have also partnered with NordVPN. If you're bored of the streaming libraries available in your country, you can expand your selection using NordVPN with a click of a button. There are over 5,000 plus server options available and no content is out of your reach. Privacy is a big deal too for all of us. Nord keeps your data encrypted and your IP address hidden to ensure complete privacy while you're browsing the internet. They've also added a new threat protection feature. You can say goodbye to intrusive website ads and malware. Even if you download an infected file, threat protection kicks in and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. If you sign up using our creator code nordvpn.com/FPL Wire, you get a huge discount of your NordVPN plan plus 4 additional months free And they also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right, let's get started. And before we start, we wanted to give a shout out to friend of a pod, Late Riser's nephew. Clearly, we are podding with the wrong shit. We got 86 points last week. Well done, Ayan. LR just back just in time for Ayan's shout out. Can you hear us, LR?
Yeah, I mean, 10. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're back with us.
Right, yeah, my 10-year-old nephew doing 86 points. I mean, I need to learn from him because he started cash and bench Chilwell. Like, I think that's something to learn from. And debut season in FPL. I mean, do you remember your debut season? What was it like when you just started off with FPL?
I had Palacios and Lucas Leiva in my team. Because, you know, I didn't know how FPL works. I thought it was something like, you know, like Football Manager, where you need to set up your team with certain attributes defensively and all that stuff. So I realized only around game week 3 or 4 and wildcarded out of that. What about you, Pras?
Yeah, same. I mean, I was using my chips. I think we all did this, right? We ended up using, there's a triple captain button here. I'm really feeling, whatever, Van Persie
Did you start
against
that late? Did you start when chips were introduced?
chips. I think there was a chip. I think 2010 was my first year.
No,
Was there
no,
no chip then?
chips came much later.
Okay, so maybe the chip thing was something else, but essentially what you do is you want to go for instant gratification. Either it's like double transfers or you take a hit the week that you feel it, and then you also stop playing in the middle. So I think we all went through that season, and I think content also played a big part, right? There was just the Scoutcast, and I was not listening to anything when I started playing, and now I think a lot of people grew up with content alongside them.
Correct. I learned from Mark and Granville. I remember the Scout course is the first thing that got me listening to the game and literally running.
Indeed.
Right. Should we get started on our discussion?
Let's do it. LR is back fully, right?
Yeah.
I still
let's
don't, I still think your audio is not very strong, and I think you're still a little bit dropping
Yes,
in and out. Let's just see.
my current internet is less reliable than Nico Jackson at the moment. All right, I'm just going to move back to my normal internet. Sorry today, guys.
That's fine. That's fine. Let's start the macro discussions
Yes.
off. So essentially what we have on this slide is the fixtures in the next 10, 11 game weeks for Liverpool, Man United, Spurs, Arsenal, and Man City. And these are the 5 teams that you selected because these are the teams that have the most expensive assets that we want to target. And the simple answer is we cannot have all these guys, right? And so most people are taking the approach, forget about Man United, don't need them, they're rubbish. And, even you said, for example, you have no Bruno and no other Man United. And your first thought is, let's get a Rashford as well. Let's get Son. Fair enough. There's a time from game week 9 when everybody will want Salah. And in fact, people may even think about adding to that. Could be Darwin Núñez, could be Trent. So then you have Tottenham. Both Maddison and Son are becoming increasingly important. And it looks like Son's going to play up top. You have Arsenal who continue to do well, even though their attacking data is sort of not there. But Saka is Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli at various points, Jesus, and then Man City, we know, Haaland, Alvarez, Foden. Idea is as people look to wildcard or look to navigate this fixture set, who do you sacrifice? What are your initial thoughts of?
Again, Manchester United is probably one I'm looking to sacrifice because I want to speak to you guys. Are the fixtures really good? Obviously, Sheffield United we can revisit a little bit later, but Palace and Brentford, I was having a look at some stats Gary Lineker posted. Palace were last on match of the day more than any other team last season. There are a reason for that. They're spoilers in general. They don't score much. They don't let you score much. The game against Fulham, under 1 XG total. So that might not be a very high scoring game. Brentford usually show up against the big sides. In fact, the game against Everton was the first game this season against a team who generally has less possession than them. And we saw they struggled a little bit. Against the top sides, I fancy them. Spurs, I think you have to pile in from game week 8. I think Liverpool will be an interesting game. Liverpool like teams to come at them. They're very good on the counter attack. They like teams who press up to them. I think that will be a very interesting game to see how fast Spurs have evolved. We could see that against Arsenal. They're playing without fear now. Even then when Arsenal were pushing them, they were still pressing forward. So I'm very, very impressed by Tottenham, what I saw. Arsenal is again one I think you can swerve possibly from game week 8 because you have Man City. Chelsea, again, I don't think he will go all out. They will probably win 1-0, 2-0, but probably not a thrashing from what we've seen how Arteta sets up. Sheffield United is good. Then Newcastle away, not great. So possibly swerve for these 3-4 fixtures, which again is very difficult for someone like me because it's always been pick the big guys, stick with them. Don't necessarily swing out through big fixtures, right? But this year, I think you have to do a hop on, hop off. Similar with Man City. You have to ask yourself, is Alvarez and hold through Arsenal, Brighton, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, the run that's coming up? Your
Let's
thoughts?
take it one by one.
Yeah.
Let's take it one by one. Okay, so let's start with Arsenal because you mentioned Arsenal. So Arsenal obviously this week Bournemouth away. Then a lot of people are looking to do Saka to a Spurs mid, which makes sense because
Right.
Spurs have Luton and Arsenal have Man City, and then they have Chelsea. People like me would look to get back to Arsenal after wildcard 10 or 9, but I think that's the point where you can get Arsenal because you have Sheffield United at home again, a banker fixture that we just saw with Spurs with Newcastle, even though that was away. But Sheffield United is a team you want some players for. Burnley at home, Wolves at home, Luton away in the next 6. You can also look at it as that block where you think maybe I can just have one Arsenal midfielder, and at the moment that is sort of Saka. It could be Jesus if people look to go. Actually, there's a nice swing from Watkins to Jesus if people went Watkins on wildcard. But in terms of Arsenal, you think it's important to have one Arsenal midfielder if you were to look at a long term, not a hop and hop off, but one glue guy like Saka?
Saka's right now the highest scoring midfielder in FPL. The thing is, he's done it in a not a very spectacular way, right? We don't talk about him the same way we do with Son because it's been trickle, then a few goals, etc. But again, you look at the fixtures, are they really difficult? We're talking about Man City who are going to turn up without Rodri. Chelsea who are just not a functional unit. Sheffield United is good. So, and again, we spoke about EO the last spot. 80 plus EO for Saka is not a joke. That's something that could really hurt you up on the other side of it. Just a second. I need to let my dog out. You guys carry on.
Yeah. So Ella, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me just fine? I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a 1-minute summary. So basically, we're talking about these are the 5 teams that have the most expensive players, and we need to jump on the right ones at the right times and also avoid some at various points in the next 10 weeks. And so the thinking is, if we're starting with Man United, I think a lot of people will jump to the conclusion that let's not have these guys because they still haven't shown us the double digits or, the fact that they can score 4-5 goals. And I think that is a fair reflection of what we know today. But then we were on Arsenal, and on Arsenal, I think the consensus is you can maybe lose Saka for the next 3, Man City and Chelsea, or maybe next 2. But then you need at least a Saka or a attacker from Arsenal pretty much for the run-in without sort of moving around too much. Do you agree with that, or you're happy to lose Saka?
No, I think I agree with that. Like, what's Arsenal's trajectory been like? They look like a better team the more they play. We've gotten news that Declan Rice and Thomas Partey both are going to be fit or in the squad to play City as well. Like that was my main concern. And as what we've seen is as long as Gabriel Jesus comes back into the team, they look like a completely more functional unit. I feel like the trajectory of Arsenal's attack has improved the more they play. And I think one of the big factors for that is Gabriel Jesus being fit. So if he's fit, I'm not too worried. Like I would want Bukayo Saka for sure in those easy games against Chelsea, Sheffield United, and Burnley. Hey.
Finally.
Yeah.
we can give it back. Okay, so look, I think a lot of people will have this dilemma. Should we sell Saka for a Spurs mid? So let's talk about that. I mean, should you do that for Man City, or are you more inclined to keep? Maybe Zoph, what are you think? Because you actually don't have any Spurs mids, right? Correct. So is Saka the one who makes way?
Rashford will definitely be making way for Son, and I need to fund it. So most likely it will be Maddison. I'll be looking to get back on Saka around 12, I think. Not even 10. Because 10 is when I'll probably look at West Ham, etc. But I am open to doing, let's say, a Spurs defender in for my Newcastle guy, because there's a little bit of a shift for Newcastle's. It's best 2 fixtures are now, right? From game week 8, possibly their fixtures turn a little bit. So I'm open to that.
And
let's just talk slightly bigger picture. Let's say you're starting from top, okay? And like Pras mentioned, right? The most expensive assets come from these teams. Which are the non-negotiables for you? Where do you start? No matter what, I want to target these guys in my team. Pras, I'll come to you.
For this run only, it's Salah and Haaland. And I know Haaland is a different discussion. We'll talk about Haaland separately because when we come to Man City's fixtures, let's discuss him. But for me, particularly Salah and Haaland, I think I have to have them for between game week 9 or 10 to game week 16, ideally.
Zoph, are you in congruence with that thinking?
Completely. And I would potentially add Alvarez there as well, because I don't think the fixtures are bad for Man City per se. Brighton, Manchester United, Bournemouth, Chelsea. Even Liverpool is at home. Tottenham is also at home. Unless Alvarez gets injured or loses his spot in the team, I don't necessarily see myself selling him for somebody like Watkins. I'll probably shuffle around in midfield. And why Salah is important, right? But while these fixtures are good, you still wouldn't want to captain Haaland. Let's say game week 10 away to Manchester United, game week 12 away to Chelsea, Liverpool. Also, Liverpool, I guess you could, because again, it's a pretty good fixture to have. But then you see Tottenham have Villa that week. That's where you will probably go. But the captaincy will become more of a factor now, I think, from game week 9 onwards, or even game week 8.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are 2 or 3 factors that are sort of at play, right? Now, you talk about the most expensive assets from these teams, where you can't have all of them. You can't have Salah, you can't have Haaland, you can't have then Trippier, then you can't have Son, and then you can't have Trent. So, where is the best replaceable asset available that's cheaper? Right, that's sort of the thinking that you do there to fix this sort of thinking. And I don't know where that is. Like with Salah, you can say that Darwin, but Salah is just incredible level of captaincy at the consistency at the moment.
Very unlucky not to get a bigger haul this week also.
Yeah. And one thing that's just changed in terms of how we need to align our perception in terms of Mo is now I think Darwin's first choice, and he's going to play next to Darwin, and that's just good for Mo Salah. It just opens up more space for him. Second, he's become like the creative outlet in that Liverpool team. One thing that's majorly affected him is he's become sort of a bonus monster. He's gone the 180 degrees, where he was an anti-bonus guy just because of the number of chances he's creating nowadays. Like 1 return is enough for 3 bonus in that game, and that's pretty good. So I think Salah and Haaland again is non-negotiable for me. I also think we're coming to a point where Son is non-negotiable. Like he's one of the best finishers in the league, has been, period. I mean, the noises coming, I was doubtful whether, Ange is using him as a striker just for the Spurs game. But the noises coming out of the Spurs camp, he's adjusting to this position. He's sort of knowing where to make the runs. Him and Maddison and Romero are the leadership group. Now that we played Son, and finishing matters, right? Like while Richarlison might be slightly better at a few of the other things, finishing just matters. Like Son was involved in that Arsenal game for 10 minutes, but you need somebody who's able to take those chances when you get 10 minutes. And I think Son could be non-negotiable as long as he's feeling striker. You could worry and think that, he might not play striker. You think of selling him when he doesn't play striker. Until then, you really need to think hard about how you're getting Son into your team.
I mean, just 2 things on Son. So first thing is, he's not finishing games. That's a little worry. So I know, we're talking, he's already great and he's proving himself to be great, but he's getting 78 minutes, not ideal. And the second thing on Son is, if you're a Game Week 10 wildcarder, so let's sit here in a position where you're wildcard in Game Week. So you get the Luton and the Fulham fixtures. Then what you get ahead of that, Crystal Palace away. Okay, not great, right? We just talked about Crystal Palace. Chelsea at home. Okay, good fixture. Great fixture. Wolves away, good fixture. Villa at home, okay, maybe good. Man City away. So there is a school of thought, at least I'm trying to think, where can I have more in this period? And then I do, maybe more to Son, or I get some other striker who I can downgrade later. Maybe I have Watkins during that period, and then I downgrade him to a Solanke or somebody else who had good fixtures after, and then get Son after. Maybe the answer is no, because after he scores his braces against Luton and Fulham, you just say, look, there's no point. He's going to go for Golden Boot. But I'm a little bit more open to it than the other two. That's where I am, at least at the moment.
I don't think Salah and Haaland are touchable at all either. Like, I wonder if you let go of the more premium defender or something of that sort to accommodate Son, is where my head is at the moment, at least.
You can get Son with a premium defender, right? Because I tinkered around a lot. It's the second, this is second premium midfielder that suffers. Like, you can't get a Saka and Son.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Because Son is a level above, I reckon. Even, I don't know if more so than Saka, but if he continues playing striker, and if he definitely has pens, then while the trajectory is good and while he's playing striker, I just think Son is number 3 on your target list at the moment.
Yeah, but
like, even that Liverpool game is a good fixture.
Yeah, he is. I mean, for sure he is. It's a good fixture. But all I'm trying to say is then if you're so high on Son, then basically Son, Son, Salah, and Haaland is like a last year's premium draft, right? I mean, maybe a little bit less, but it's close to a premium draft. So we
Yeah.
have to think about what else are you sacrificing? Maybe you don't get a Raya in goal. Maybe you can't get you don't have money for a Stupini and cash and another defender, and you have to sort of downgrade somewhere. So there are sacrifices to be made somewhere. Of course, we all want all these three guys. Plus, we want Saka. Plus, we want Trippier, but we can't. So all I'm trying to say is maybe there are some compromises to be made. And actually, I want to say there's no wrong answer. Like there will be many people in Game Week 8 who will wildcard without Haaland. Prepare yourself to see that. And they will do it. Because from Game Week 8, there is an argument. Arsenal away, Man United away, Chelsea away, Liverpool, Spurs, Brighton. Now, I know these are easy and a lot of them, Haaland can score a brace it, but people will just have the other view that LR has. Son is essential, Salah is essential. I want Watkins for the great fixtures. I have Darwin, but none of
LR
them are
also has
Haaland.
the view that Haaland's essential. Let's just not.
No.
mince
So I'm not
words.
changing it, but I'm saying
Yeah.
people could have that view, and you will see teams wildcarding in Game Week 8 without Haaland. We are not here on this pod suggesting that, and I don't think any of us will do that, but it is viable. So all I'm saying is even for Salah versus Son, some people may choose to go both. Some people may choose to go where I'm thinking at the moment where I start with Salah and not Son. Or you could also say basically the money for Salah plus a 4.5 attacker is almost the same as Son and Darwin Núñez. So you could say that, look, I'm not going Salah, I'm going to go Darwin as my 8th attacker, and then I just rotate and I try to get the best out of these fixtures in terms of when I want to play my Arsenal guy, I will play him against Sheffield United. When it's Newcastle away, maybe I won't play my Arsenal guy. You could have a rotation way as well.
Yeah. I just wouldn't recommend it. I just wouldn't recommend it. That's where I am. I like there are times to gamble, and at the moment, I just feel like let's present that argument for Haaland because we did look into a little bit of data in terms of how Haaland did in tough fixtures versus easy. Zoph, can we move to that?
Sure. This is the start of it.
Yeah. So basically, what we are seeing here is that what you see on the left is Haaland's underlying numbers against the top six, who he faces in the next 7-8 fixtures in that run. So this includes Arsenal, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Spurs, the traditional top six as we know it. And on the right is the data that you see against everybody else. Now, you can see that there was a slight drop-off where his FPL points were down from 8 points a game to 6.4 points a game. But if we go into the underlying numbers, it isn't that bad. His XGI per 90 was 0.8. 0.8, by the way, just think about 0.8 XGI per 90 for an asset like Haaland. Like, just don't focus on whether it's improved or decreased. 0.8 XGI per 90 against this tough opposition is what Haaland commanded, which his XG went down to 0.6 against tough fixtures to 0.8 in the easier fixtures. His XA actually went slightly up. And then we look at the goal attempts and the analog data. Goal attempts were higher against tougher opposition. 3.3 goal attempts per game versus 3.2, not much in it. 3.2 shots in the box versus 3 shots in the box. Big chances fell down. 1.3 big chances against tougher opposition compared to 1.7. I think that has to do with the nature of the defenses that he's facing as well. I also did look at this data for all the opposition that Haaland's facing in the next 8 weeks versus the rest, and it gets even closer. It's almost like a 10% difference. So there isn't much of a difference. It's just the point I wanted to illustrate. If we can go back to the fixture tickers off. And there is a way where you can on the 5 team fixture ticker.
Sure.
If you can, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the point to illustrate is, yes, while his numbers did drop, obviously slightly, they dropped slightly. And his numbers still, when you compare to other assets in that price bracket, you're looking at 0.8 XGI per 90, and you're looking at his points in the next, when you're looking at all the opposition between game week 8 and 14, he averaged 7 points in FPL game, just the best pick in the game, irrespective of fixture. So I just wanted to offer that food for thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're aligned. No, none of us are losing, but I can make an argument for maybe not doubling up. And you don't have to captain. I mean, there's this argument of if you're not captaining Haaland, why do you have him? You have him because you expect him to score 300 points this season. And you'd never know which game he scores a hat-trick in. It could be Brighton at home. It could be Chelsea away. So you have to sort of go with that and have the belief that over this 10 block of fixtures, he'll score 60 to 80 points.
Yeah. I mean, if you remember, and then Zoph rightly pointed out, if you look at the fixtures, it's never that bad. Somehow the easier fixtures in his block of fixtures are always split between an easy fixture in the middle. The tough fixtures are split by an easy fixture in the middle. So, you're looking at Wolves away, then Arsenal away, yes, tough fixture. Then you got Brighton home, which is a good fixture for attackers. Then there's United away. Yeah, they posted one of the lowest XGs United away last season, but it's United. We have shown we can crumble and concede 5 goals to them. It depends on which way the coin falls and what happens on that day. Then Bournemouth, Chelsea, you're liking. Even Liverpool and Spurs at home, you're liking. So it's a tough call. At the moment, I don't think I'm inclined to lose him.
I'd agree.
You know what's gonna be the perfect storm though, where people are thinking of wildcarding in game week 9. Haaland blanks against Arsenal, and then Trent assists 2 of Mo Salah's goals in game week 8. That's the perfect storm. Like that will lead to people, because you can't go to Haaland and Mo and then Trent as well. If you want Trent, then Haaland needs to be the sacrificial lamb. So I think a lot depends on how Trent does and what his perception is in the next few games, because you'll want him around game week 9. Those fixtures look good.
Anything more on this discussion, or we move on to Nico
Just
Jackson?
on Spurs, I want one more. So I talked about Son. Would you guys have Son and Maddison for long term? Or because again, you have to choose between Maddison or an Arsenal mid or a Man United mid. But okay, we've talked about not having Man United mid, but Arsenal mid versus Maddison long term after game week 10 is still a debate. Where are you guys?
I haven't really decided yet. I need to see like how Spurs do more, and ultimately a lot of other teams I also need to target. There's West Ham who have a good run of fixtures. Brighton have a good run of fixtures from game week 10 on. So I think of the two, I'd probably more be inclined to keep Son, because the price difference isn't that much now. It's about 1.2, 1.3 million, and the ceiling is always going to be higher with Son.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And let's say there are certain fixtures where you don't want to captain one of Mo or Haaland, and Son keeps sustaining at this rate. I'm much more comfortable giving him the armband than I am Maddison. I think he's as a likely candidate as a third captaincy option.
Game week 8, he's a template captain.
Correct.
Yeah.
Move on to Nico.
Yep.
Yeah, let's move on.
There's an interesting comment in the chat, LR. Finishing matters, says the number 1 Nico Jackson fan.
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm feeling sad though. I wanted it to work out. I wanted to be patient, but maybe in my best interest,
Would you
it
have
was good
kept
that
him
he got
still? If he wasn't suspended, would you have?
Away Fulham is a good fixture.
I would have considered keeping him. Yes, I genuinely would have considered keeping him. Like it's. Yeah,
I can't wait till you have kids. I know the expected Nobel Prize is going to be so high the whole time.
Yeah. But finishing does matter, because I've been thinking about it, and I tweeted also. Chelsea 3rd for XGC, 6th for XG, and then 5% conversion rate. It is the fact that they're overthinking their chances. It genuinely is the fact. But I also think there's a fair amount of bad luck associated. Like, it's not like they missed chances, it's also that they've hit the post. So the right answer is somewhere in the middle ground. I don't think it's as bad as everyone is making out to be, where you're saying, it's a relegation candidate, etc., and Chelsea are absolutely screwed at the moment. And I don't think it's as positive as I've tried to be, or as optimistic as I've tried to be about Chelsea either. The answer is somewhere in the middle. Depending on fires in your team, they're an okay hold given the fixtures. That's about it.
I mean, there's something that data doesn't capture, which is confidence, or people call form, right? And that whoever has played any form of sport or followed any form of sport, let's say cricket or anything, when somebody's mindset is, when I get the ball, I shoot, or when I get a ball, I hit a 4, and it clicks. And there are other times where you're basically guessing yourself. Should I pass the ball? Shall I shoot the ball? Shall I go left? Shall I go right? And you are second guessing yourself. And Jackson is now in that, where he is not confident. So basically just comparing his XG with Alvarez's XG doesn't work in that context, because of the way they're playing within their teams, how their teams are playing. But having said that, the guy is 1-on-1 against the keeper every single game. One day he will score. And whether you hold him enough to have that, maybe that's the answer is no, because everybody's pretty much going to sell him this game.
Yeah. It's not even that guy. It's all the 3 Chelsea assets I've owned. Even if you look at the game against Villa, let's just paint the right picture. Until the 56th minute, Chelsea didn't, pull up any trees, and they weren't great in attack, but they controlled a game against a tough Aston Villa team. And what did we see? Chilwell had a one-on-one, Sterling had a one-on-one, and Jackson had a one-on-one.
That
Like
is so
all the three
painful.
assets, and this is the second or third week in a row that's happened. So
Yeah.
I don't know what happens, but yeah.
What are your
About
thoughts
it.
on Sterling? I mean, I don't know if you're done with the Jackson. I mean, actually, if you're talking Jackson, let's talk. What are you going to do with Jackson now that he's suspended? So, LR, you have him.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's replacements is interesting because my thought on Sunday, it's changed every day. My thought on Sunday is everybody around me was buying Morris in droves. And I was like, I don't know if I want to buy Morris. I mean, it's all right. He's got a double game week, but I successfully avoided Dennis Gate. I've successfully avoided Woodgate. I've never indulged in those strikers. And it's just not something I feel like doing. And there's a little part of me where there are two schools of thoughts. If you're sure you're committing to a wildcard game week 8, 9, or 10, then maybe you take that punt. But even if you're giving me single game week punts, I think there are better punts to take. Like I think Antonio this week against Sheffield United, we saw what they do against opposition that is poor at set pieces. I think is an interesting punt. I think is a really interesting punt, especially with the best deliverer of crosses available to supply those set pieces. So and we've seen them. He likes this kind of opposition that he likes to bully, and he's got a hat trick in him. So if you're going for a 1 week punt, I think of Antonio. But my first instinct, honestly, and where I am right now, is I think it's either Alvarez that I'm going for, or I'm very, 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 very Darwin curious. Like I think if with Darwin, right, I think you need to time him correctly as an asset. I think the two matchups that he has in the next two games against Spurs and against Brighton, they will need his space behind the line of defense. He's still very cheap. And if it doesn't work out, I can wildcard him out as where I am. But I think we are close to approaching a place, because I think him playing in the Europa League and then getting a start again in the Premier League speaks volumes. And I'm just going to read out Klopp's comments here because they were really, really good. This is what Klopp said. Massive steps in the last few weeks. He's a threat. You all saw the goal. It was probably pretty good, right? That was really strong. He always available for it. It's super important for us that we have now, I'm not sure if it's the right word, a ball player. Chip the ball there, get it on the chest. The defensive work he puts in now, that's probably the main difference. He always wanted, but it was less coordinated. Now that looks much better, and we found a way to do it around him with Curtis Jones and Szoboszlai. Like the comments are really, really positive. So I'm debating between the two because you think that Alvarez's fixtures maybe are slightly tougher, but Darwin's aren't either. It's just the numbers, man. He gets 3 big chances a game so far. If you extrapolate his data to plus 90s, he's got upside. So as things stand, I think it's between Darwin and Alvarez for me. Not interested in Morris. And I feel bad for Callum Wilson owners. I think there's a pun there too. You see what happens in the midweek games, but out of everybody that felt unlucky after the games on Sunday, I think Callum Wilson owners need to be feeling terrible because there was 3 or 4 or 5 returns there for the taking.
3 big chances.
Yeah. So that's
he
where
doesn't
I'm,
normally
and-
miss.
Yeah, he doesn't normally miss. I think these are the names that I'm
Well,
considering.
Saurav from Discord has an interesting name for you, LR, if you're wildcarding in game week 9, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Beto, because they play Luton at home and Bournemouth at home in the next 2. So if you were basically committed to a game week 9 wildcard, you get a guy who plays possibly the 2 best games that you can have at home.
Yeah, he's answered his own question though, because who is going to start? PCL or Beto? Beto's done enough, and we don't know that. Do they split minutes? Do they play together? We just don't have that answer yet. So I clock that they have good fixtures, but I just don't know who to play. If you're committed to wildcarding next week, I think the best punt is Antonio. Like I like that home fixture against Sheffield United when he's getting supplied by Sheffield United by Watchlists. Yeah, like I think that's a good fixture. But I think another school of thought I'll ask you guys also is if maybe I get Darwin right now or Alvarez, and I've got Son and Maddison in place, I don't know if I find a route to Mo Salah. I need to sit down and plan a route to that. And if I get in Mo Salah without using my wildcard, I wonder if I can get away with it.
You can't have Mo, Haaland, Son, Darwin, Maddison.
You can.
Can't I?
Very
I
much
haven't
can.
played around with it.
Darwin, Maddison, Son, Salah, and Haaland.
Yes. Very much so.
I
When
think
we
they'll
bring
struggle.
up to my team, I'll show it to you. The key is
Yeah, but
spending cheap in
Yeah, but
defense.
you've removed all the money from your defense, from your goalkeepers. You
Exactly.
can't do that with free transfers.
Correct. With free transfer, in general, theoretically, it is possible.
Then no Saka for Sheffield United at home in game week 10. So it's complicated.
There are sacrifices, obviously.
Yeah, it is definitely complicated. It's definitely complicated. Just out of your opinion, like at the moment, I think best Jackson replacements are Alvarez or Darwin. Don't complicate it. Is where I am. Where do you guys stand?
Pras?
For me, Morris won game week. I mean, for all the things we said about the guy, 2 games, you're throwing the dice twice. It's a bad dice, but the dice is on penalties. It's okay. It's just, throw the dice twice. And if it's 1 game, you saw Sheffield United, sometimes you hit like Trippier, sometimes you fail like Son and Madison. So it's not like in 1 game, things can go wrong. So you take 2 games over 1 game. If it was a 1 game punt only, I think 2 game weeks, I'm with you. You can be more longer term in your horizon. You can go Alvarez. You can go. I've been shouting Watkins for a while. He's finally done well, which is helpful. You can go Watkins, and basically that then helps you long term. You're sorted, so you don't need to be pressurized into a wild card. Really depends on the horizon that you have for your wild card. I really like Darwin. I think the idea of if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, you wild card him out. That's also excellent.
I think the wildcard horizon, I think by now you pretty much need to at least have a clear plan on when you want to wildcard. Because I think that's really going to optimize your strategy going forward. I was telling LR earlier that possibly Tottenham is not a bad fixture for Morris, but let's be honest, it's not a great fixture. You'd rather have 2 games
fixture.
of
I don't even think Everton and Burnley are good fixtures. By what I've witnessed over the weekend, both Everton and Burnley are superior teams to Luton. Luton will need to play really, really hard to fluke 1 goal, and you hope that's Morris. That's how I see the games playing. Like Everton have done well, and Burnley have done well. Burnley outplayed us completely, and I think they're capable of doing that too and improving Luton team. They are improving, but I'm just not interested. I don't want to lie. I'm just not interested at them.
Yeah, because
Things change Friday, maybe.
And captaincy isn't a factor at all, right? We're definitely not going there. So I think you could swerve there. Only I would possibly go there is if I'm going to wildcard over the second international break. That's after game week 8. If not, I like the 2 names you mentioned. Alvarez or Darwin, depending on your risk appetite.
Wilson would tempt either of you?
The thing is, there's some interesting comments that Howe made. He said Isaac has been playing with an injury. That's quite promising for Wilson's minutes. Burnley is good. I think if he gets rested midweek, that'll be interesting. But he's definitely starting PSG. If Isaac is not fit and let's say he starts Burnley PSG, then is he going to start against West Ham? Gets a bit dodgy then, right?
Indeed. It's one of those which will always be a problem. I mean, for me, again, Darwin, it falls in that same category. Unless there's an injury and I know he's starting, I just find other options are there. I mean, if you don't like, Alvarez is right there. Haaland is right there. If you wanted to go for a safer player that starts minutes regularly, these players are there. I mean, again, I'm saying Watkins is there. I mean, he's the guy is starting just because he's not on pens. He's got good fixtures longer term. So there are decent options where you get a lot of more minutes than what you're sort of banking on with Wilson or Darwin. But Darwin I get for other reasons because his fixtures are so good. You're just the first one on it.
Yeah. I actually want to see because I'm curious how many minutes Alvarez plays midweek. I won't be surprised if he plays midweek because he was taken off in the 57th minute because of him being Rodried. But I want to see what happens then because
He's
I'm
still going to
curious
play against Wolves though.
He's still going to play against Wolves, but those minutes are adding up. So I just want to see.
I think there's a comment from Pep last year that he's very young. He can play every day if he has to. So I don't think recovery period is as much of a problem for Alvarez there.
And sort of the problem is solved because he played 57 minutes, right? 57 minutes is a decent enough short rest. So his resting is done. So
I don't think midweek you would read too much into that.
Yeah. Like my first thought on Sunday is, damn, I got away not making the Jackson to Alvarez move. I lucked out. Thank you, Rodri. But I want him now. But I also want Darwin. So I think as things stand probably between the two now.
Okay, there's one more. If you were looking at Game Week 10 wildcard, Awani, because he plays Brentford at home, Luton at home in Game Week 9, then you wildcard him. I mean, he has Crystal Palace as well in Game Week 8 away. So that one is not ideal. But Brentford at home, Luton at home, good 2 fixtures. Then you wildcard him out.
Yeah, fair. Good shout. There's some interesting puns. If you're wildcarding next week, though, just throw the dice for Antonio. Just feel like it.
Throw
What do you
two
guys think
dice.
about that
Throw
shot?
two dice.
What you don't feel it? Zoph, 1 week punt, Morris or Antonio? Where you at?
Antonio.
Yeah. Just in general, comment on
But
West
just
Ham.
one thing I just struck my mind when I say that, right? If you ask me going into the Sheffield United game, which is the leakiest team of the three, I wouldn't have said the Blades. Because what we saw against Man City and what we saw against Spurs is that they are capable of putting up a decent deep block. But the Newcastle game, what happened after the set piece goals they conceded, they just collapsed. They lost their heads. So are we perhaps overreacting? Because against West Ham, they're going to again full
That's
deep
a good
block.
shout. Yeah,
Just something
it's a good
to
shout.
keep in mind.
And something we always forget as FPL players is we've noticed they were terrible. Surely they've noticed they're terrible. Surely their managers noticed they're terrible, and they're going to work hard to correct exactly the mistakes that they made that game. So you almost expect a performance to come after a thrashing like this. So good shout. Fair enough. I agree.
Because company said that about Burnley after the Man United game, is that we've been leaky and been working on our defensive shape in order to not concede more goals. So completely what we saw a very different game against Man United than what we expected. So teams do change and adapt.
Fair shout. I agree with that.
Anything else on the forward? I've got the RMT numbers. Let's just talk about some of the other double game week assets. Anybody from Burnley at all interest you guys?
I mean, Amdouni looked decent, and there's a punt and a half. I just wish the second fixture was slightly better. Is where I am. That's about it in terms of. I mean, they had really good chances against us. The problem is what we've seen all season. They're lacking decision making in the final third. They're controlling games, but they're improving. They're really improving. That's the only name I like from that Burnley team.
Are you going to play Bayer? You have Bayer, and who are you playing him against? Sorry, instead of?
Guess who's Zoph?
Chilwell.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's a decision for later. But yeah, at the moment he's on my bench as Bayer.
Yeah, because I think Kabore go ahead.
Yeah, the wing backs. If I was to buy a wing back and if I already owned Kabore, like the Luton wing backs interest me more because there's a higher chance of lucking out with the cleans. And Kabore has been good, but even Doughty, his numbers have been really, really impressive. I thought he looked good as well. I think 5 chances created, 3 shots, and he's on set pieces also. So, if I had to throw darts and pick a name that would do well this weekend, it would be Doughty. And he's got a legendary FPL name as well. So that sort of adds to the weightage.
Any names you want to shout out, Pras?
I think, no, apart from Morris, there's not anybody, maybe keepers. So, there's some niche players out there that are looking to bench boost in this game week and then wildcard next week. So I think they might look at a keeper as a second keeper. So I think in that case, both Trafford and Kaminsky are good. Trafford more for saves. And then, again, I said this in the past and people didn't like it, but it's a better fixture for Burnley than it is for Luton when Burnley plays Luton, simply because they won the last one when they played this in the championship. So it's not a bad shout. I think for me, the second best double game weeker would probably be Trafford. And then that's it. But nobody's making that move as a free transfer, replacing their keepers that are not scoring any points anyway. So not much. And I think everybody's cautiously dipping into the double game week opportunistically. Let's say for Jackson, if he's suspended or if you're wildcarding next week, then they're doing it. But I don't see many people doing it because they want these assets long term, and that's how it should be.
Absolutely. The thing, it's much easier to wildcard them out. Like if you're not planning to use your wildcard anytime soon, I wouldn't bother with a transfer in and out for these guys.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I didn't say about Morris is the advantage of going for a Morris is basically you play him in this double, then you bench him next game week for Archer, and then you play him against Burnley at home. Nottingham Forest in game week 9. So you could have that formation, but obviously LR is laughing because you will not do that. You don't want to be playing a Luton and a Sheffield United striker as one of your 7 strikers. I get it, but I'm saying there could be something there.
No, that's fine. Morris looked better than I expected him to this weekend.
The post.
Like they hit the post. They're relying heavily on crosses. There was a stat that I read. Can you guys chat? I just want to pull it up. There was an interesting stat about Morris.
Must be
While you're looking at Morris, do you had that chat on Kabore? Because that's the interesting one, right? In terms of goal actions in the penalty box. I don't know if you picked that up.
I don't remember reading that.
Okay. That's fine. So basically, he is creating a lot of penalty box actions, whether that is pass into the box, whether that's touches, penalty area touches. So essentially, if you wanted to punt, which LR also mentioned, not just for clean sheets, for attacking returns, I think Kabore is not a bad shout in terms of a defender. A lot of us have him, so I'm happily playing him.
They had 44 crosses in that game against Wolves, and almost as twice of anybody else had played on Saturday. And that's encouraging for Morris because a third of his 20 goals last season came from headers. So they're sort of playing to attack the way he plays. And one other thing that stood out to me was they didn't do much, and Morris got 3 points. So that's the advantage of getting a striker in a team that's sort of low scoring. Is one goal might be enough for 3 bonus points. So that's also a thing where you get 1 assist, 1 goal through 1 pen, and 3 bonus points, and you're looking at a 15-pointer there. So there is that.
Yeah, very much supplying him like Mitrovic was for Fulham last year.
Yeah.
So models have Morris higher than Haaland. I think we're all suggesting not to do that. Or are we lukewarm about it, or are we completely against it?
I'm completely
Not even
against
consider.
it. It's Wolves.
Not even
And
consider.
we see some numbers in terms of stats. Wolves are way near the bottom in terms of XGC and stuff. As you consider non-penalty, they're 11.78. That's almost 2 XGC per game. You don't want to go against that.
Correct. I mean, the way models do it is basically they take into account 1,000
Minutes.
simulations. In one simulation, Haaland has gotten injured. In one simulation, he's got a red card. In 100, he's got a goal. So, and basically, again, Morris will do this twice. So just because his floor is higher, in models he comes out a little higher. But you have to sort of do these sensitivities and realize how many games do you expect if they played 100 times for Luton to win. I don't expect too many. I expect pretty much all those games for Man City to win. So I don't think it's a big enough delta for people to go against Haaland, like they did with Son a couple of game weeks ago, like they will do with Son and Salah going forward. This is not the one.
Yeah. I also want to mention why I'm not considering Morris at all is because I've got Son and Madison in place. So in my head, I want to get an asset that I'm happy with playing the next 2, 3, 4 weeks as well, because I have those Spurs midfielders already in place. So that is also one thing on my mind where I don't want to look at such a short-term punt right now.
Right, your wildcard horizon is longer. Is basically what you're saying.
Potentially longer.
You haven't even decided yet. So
I haven't even decided.
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And anything more on the double game week?
Nothing on the double game week, but let's finish the discussion on Chelsea because we talked about Jackson. I think people will talk about Sterling. Should they keep or hold? Should they talk about Chelsea? I see in the chat as well. Sorry, about Chilwell. So Sterling, go on, Zoph. Will he play centre forward without this guy?
I think
Jackson?
he will, because Poch made some comments today that Broya isn't ready to start. He'd maybe give 20, 30 minutes. So it's pretty much the only option unless he starts to do something random like Palmer, false 9. I don't think he's going to do that. I think Sterling will play centre forward. He doesn't really have the hold-up play. It's not like Jackson did anyway, so I don't think it's going to be much of a loss over there. And in general, I like always Sterling closer to goal, because with Sterling, the more thinking time you give him, the more likely he is to mess it up. You have to put him right in the center, as close to goal you can. So, but the thing is, right, I want to talk to you guys about Fulham. I'm finding them a little bit hard to read this season, because last year Fulham were very gung-ho. You'd see their numbers, XGC numbers were quite high. Even this season, if you see, the XGC numbers are quite poor, but they've kept 3 clean sheets now in the last 6. A game against Palace, they gave up only something like 0.3, 0.4. So it's a very different. So it's a very different Fulham from last year, right? I think the absence of Mitrovic has caused them to adapt. So they're not as leaky. They will be up for it. They will fancy beating Chelsea in the derby. So I don't think it's necessarily an easy fixture for Chelsea at all.
Definitely not an easy fixture. I'm with you on that. And especially at home, it's one of those slightly unpredictable pictures, but I don't see it as an easy fixture. Pras, sorry, I cut you.
No, I was just saying, for me, if they're bottom 4 in XGC, then it will come. I mean, yes, maybe the approach is different. So maybe our thinking is that over time, we expect them to become bottom 8, not bottom 4. I mean, they were battered by Everton in game week 1. They kept a clean sheet. After that, they've been better. I agree. The Palace game, they were better. But I wouldn't use that as saying maybe Chelsea don't get joy. Chelsea are creating a lot of chances. We are done defending Chelsea in this pod, but they are creating. There's only 2 teams this season that have won every single game on XG. That's Man City and Chelsea. So this is basically the thinking is that one day you will get lucky. Maybe that day will come after you've sold their assets, but you will get lucky. We were talking about this with Newcastle. People are like 2 clean sheets in 22 games. Why are you guys wasting time talking about Newcastle defense? It will come. If Chelsea continue to play the way they're playing, maybe it's through Broya, maybe it's through Sterling top nine, false nine, or as the nine, they will score a couple of goals in a game, and it could be Fulham. So we are here for it.
Zoph, just functionally, wouldn't you think that somebody like a Palmer playing sort of like a false nine is better than sticking Sterling up front center forward? Like, I can't get my head around how Sterling would work as a center forward. Like, I like him getting the ball in the positions where he does, which is sort of like in those inside channels and then make driving runs inside is where I am. I just sort of think that's his best position because he's capable of creating slightly more as well. I don't know how that attack is going to function if you put him center forward.
Correct. It's obviously not exactly same to Rashford, but there's some parallels with Rashford there, right? The weaker part of this game is once he passes to Sterling, you can't really expect him to play with his back to goal. He's going to get bullied off the ball very easily. So, but is Palmer going to offer that? Not really, right?
I think he's more likely to offer that than Sterling himself is where I am personally.
I don't know really what Poch is doing because even the comments with Chilwell today were quite vague. He's comparing limes and lemons in his press conferences and whatnot. So I really don't know what Poch is planning now.
Guy, man, if he just said that, we're going to persist with Colville on Friday. Anyway, I don't want to go back to the thing.
If you've already played your wildcard though, and you are wanting to set up funds and downgrade Sterling, there's a punt in there that I quite like that I want to shout, and that's Ward-Prowse. I was never ever into Ward-Prowse and never was a Ward-Prowse kind of manager, but I think we need to adjust our thinking in terms of what's changed. I think there are a few factors. A, we are going to want to afford all these expensive guys in the near future, as we discussed at the top of the pod, right? Now, West Ham's fixtures, Sheffield United home, Newcastle home, Villa away, Everton home, Brentford away, Forest at home, Burnley away, Crystal Palace home. They're great. And when you're wanting these expensive guys, you sort of want cheap blue guys in your team. I think he's right at the top of the list or in consideration if you're thinking of finding a glue guy that's cheap. Because Ward-Prowse and Moyes and West Ham are sort of like a match made in heaven. Think about the number of big guys that are there in that West Ham team. Think about the kind of delivery that he has. The fact that he's got Alvarez and Souček behind him doing the dirty work, which is different from his positioning to Southampton, where he was one of the sixes primarily. So just if you want to find funds for Mo or Son eventually, and are not looking to wildcard immediately, I think that's a good shout. And even for the reasons we mentioned, because of Sheffield United's set pieces weakness, could be a good shout and a good week to get him in. I mean, I think Bowen is an incredible asset as well. It depends on the budget spending, etc., that you want to do. And we spoke about those constraints. But yeah, that's the shout that I wanted to mention.
There's a full 1 million there, and West Ham are a much better team than last year. We remember the bookies, the change in spreads we saw last year. West Ham had one of the biggest jumps.
Yep. I mean, there's also Gordon. So if you're talking going back to macro on cheap options for wildcard longer term, I mean, given that Barnes is injured long term, I think Gordon might put up his hand as well. But I think James Ward-Prowse specifically for this week, like if people were on a free hit this week, and I see some are like Andy Martin, then James Ward-Prowse is a good option for this week.
Yeah, Gordon also a good pick now. Phenomenal game.
4 yellow cards. Let's say that right at the top.
Yeah. Just mention that. I mean, you need to take that into consideration. And yeah, I mean, it was incredible that Jackson got a 5th yellow for dissent. I mean, that just tells you about the kind of guy he is, man. I really wanted to work on.
I don't think he got it for dissent. I think he was too close when Martinez was clearing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like stupidity, right?
Yeah. Stupidity, yes. But absolutely.
Yeah. And especially after your manager's having this conversation with you, he's mentioning it in the press conference. Then you go on and do that. Jeez.
So Chilwell, we agree, is a sell?
The comments today indicate so. I think he's saying Chilwell will play in the Carabao Cup. I like Colville at left back. But again, Quicksilver in the chat makes a good point. He says that Palmer has played false 9 in the past. So we could see again Sterling left, Palmer false 9. You just don't know. And again, I don't think the fixtures are great. The question now we have to ask is, do you take a hit for Trippier this week for somebody like Chilwell? Plus, you're in the same boat. What do you think?
So I would be in a similar position to others where this week is not an emergency for any defenders because you have a nice little Kabore or a Bear who solves one problem. And then let's say you have another, an Arsenal defender that is playable, Bournemouth away. You have, even in a worst case, Estupinian away to Villa is not the end of the world. You can play him. So there are enough defenders that are okay to play. Now, I may be talking in a similar way like last week where I said, let's just play Diaz at home to Wolves and he can match Botman, but the mighty Botman does better. So you could obviously get punished, but I don't think this is the week where you need to be taking hits for defenders per se because all defenders are okay this week. So my particular example, I may just now end up benching Chilwell when we come to my team, but I don't think I need to solve that this week. Maybe I find out another week where I bench him and this time he starts. At least I know if I can start him in the game week after that.
Fair enough. Let's read out the fixtures for
Do
Newcastle.
you agree with that, Zoph? In terms of not taking hits for a defender right now?
I mean, it sounds with recency bias, you say with Trippier, no, right? Because we've seen what Trippier can deliver in the fixtures. For the next four for Newcastle are Burnley, West Ham, Palace, Wolves. And the defense is with so many options and hop like attack, it's very rare you're going to have that luxury transfer to do it. So again, if you're going to take the hit, I think the hit is this week because the entry point, Burnley at home, is great. He's playing his former club. He's likely getting a rest tomorrow. So again, I would take the hit, I think.
I just say that if you're considering and very hot on Trippier, then this is the last week to take the hit. But I do want to mention that what happened against Sheffield United in terms of an 18-pointer is very much an anomaly. Like that sort of thing happens once in 5 years. It doesn't happen. It's nailed on triple hat trick of assists now next week as well. But this is the last week if you're taking a hit. But I wouldn't panic so much. Like one thing I noticed this week is Burnley can play. They're a much better team than Sheffield United, in my opinion.
And mentally, I might be wrong over here also, but I think Newcastle will have a little bit of an eye on the PSG game. It's impossible not to. It's such a huge occasion at St. James Park. I think the players might be playing a little bit within themselves, a little bit not to get injured. Might be a game they try to control a little bit because they had that 5-day gap against Sheffield United. It's not that. I think they play PSG on the Saturday, Wednesday. Still a decent turnaround, but they will have their minds on that a little bit.
You take your 70th minute sub. I mean, that was good.
Exactly.
Livramento came on. I mean, I think we predicted so much of what happened in the last game during the last two pods of, remember we were talking about your wildcard and we said that Trippier, we said 12-pointer, that assist 3 bonus is coming. We said, Livra is not going to start, but he may come on the 70th minute. It happened. So yeah, I mean, I think still a great option, but getting him becomes harder and harder the closer you get to your wildcard and the closer you get to sort of dead-ending your team. And then there's the West Ham fixture in Game Week 8, which is okay. I mean, it's away, so you don't want to, that's not a banker clean sheet. So then you sort of talk yourself out of it. And now somebody like me, I don't think I'm going to get Trippier. I might get him as the last Game Week punt in Game Week 9, but I don't think I'm going to get him now.
Even then you'd probably go for somebody more fun, like you have the Liverpool guys who are playing Everton.
Exactly.
Predictability is definitely more with attacker. But I think if you're in a situation where you are playing Chilwell this week, I'd take the hit for Trippier. It's because it's just a problem you're going to carry forward unless you're going to wildcard in 9 or 10, which is very soon and you don't want to take the hit. Just get him in and be done with it.
Yeah. And basic hygiene, but obviously watch the Carabao and then let Poch speak once more.
Absolutely.
In general, Zoph, though, I don't know if you guys had this conversation when I was coming in and out of the top of the pod, but any wildcard regrets in terms of decisions, any decisions that you were close to that you didn't go? Not, I think you were fairly settled in terms of the decisions.
Fairly settled, just the Sun thing, Sun or Rash, but I didn't have any money for it. I was 0.0, so I couldn't really do anything over there.
No real regrets otherwise.
Share burn, I would have picked share every day of the week. I browsed Newcastle forums, spoke to a ton of Newcastle fans. They all said avoid burn like the plague. So it's a bit hindsighty to say that I should have picked burn there. I'm happy I didn't commit money in that goalkeeper spot with Flecken because I'm not getting that confidence from Brentford. What I see, and they only have probably one good fixture now over the next 6 or 7. So I'm happy having that money out and money mobile, at least.
If someone is wildcarding now, would you dip into Raya? Have we seen enough?
The thing is, it's very strange because the press just don't seem to let it go. Every game
they won't. Ramsdale is English. They won't.
Absolutely, because you see the comments from Carragher, etc. And I just don't like that. With my keeper, the comforting factor is you have Areola as a backup. Arteta, as much as he says he's not going to sub Raya on, even though he talks about it. So that comfort is there. But again, short-term fixtures, not great. You could, the thing is, and they don't really rotate, right? We had to look at the rotation as well. If you have Raya, you're obviously playing him every week. On a wildcard, probably still bring him in. But again, the argument I presented to you was there are really not very good defensive options. Today, you have a Gabriel available at a 4.7, and I can get away with an Areola, a minimum spend in the least upside position. Do I really want to do that? Because again, Areola has great fixtures. You look at the hop on over here from game week 10 to game week 17 almost. Fantastic run. You could come very close to matching Rhea over there, but in terms of defense, who are you going to get if you want to keep the spend below 5 million? Your Cash, your Estupinan, and your Gabriels, right? Because you can't really go to City defense, you can't go to United defense, you can't go to Chelsea defense. Maybe a Spurs fullback. Options are limited, more in outfield players than at goalkeepers.
Yeah, Pras, the moment you sit down to tinker for a wildcard today, like you're going to need to find money, and the first place you're going to go is downgrade that Raya from a 4.8 to a 4.0. Like
That's I know.
It's just going to happen.
I'm close to a draft. I mean, this is also a discussion to be had, right? I mean, the more you delay the wild card, the more expensive it gets. And so there's a lot of people sort of panicking, and again, panicking not the right word, but basically saying, let's play it because we will be able to afford these players. But my counter to that is the Gordons of this world will always come up. So what you think is the wild card for 10 or 9 will not be a wild card because some opportunity will emerge. Maybe Darwin instead of Watkins. Maybe a player that you think right now is essential. Let's call it Saka. Maybe Martinelli goes crazy, or so there are things that will happen in the next 3-4 game weeks that may change it. It may not. So I don't think people should just play the wild card because they think they can't afford all these players, so might as well play it now.
But I do think like what's changed in terms of what I was unsure of and wanting answers from this week compared to last week, like there is a shift. And I'd be much more confident about some of the calls I take now. And if you have that same route and if your team is absolutely a terrible team, then I was wondering whether Son would continue playing center forward and be the asset that he is. Like one of the big questions that I had was that, because he's a very different asset if he's playing wide. That answer is there now. So you know that. Mo looks the business. I mean, Liverpool are matching Man City for XG right now. I think it's worth mentioning how much they are creating in attack these days. They're genuinely very, very good in attack. So that's a good, reliable place to go to week on week. Newcastle defenders have shown what you can expect from them in terms of reliability. Spurs being a reliable team in general is something I'm confident about. So if I had to go for an Udogi maybe on a wild card, I'm happy about that. The Cash Moreno question is also sort of semi-answered where, he wasn't even in the squad last week. And Emery mentioned that, we're going to give him 15 days more off. So Cash looks like he's going to be the attacking wingback for a while as well. So there were a lot of question marks that Chelsea and United look rubbish, and we don't need to go on them until they maybe start showing signs of form. Like that confirmation is there about the things that you had questioned about. I think Zoph's assumptions in terms of what he had in mind, except for maybe the rash Son call, which was something that just turned wrong, were all on point. So, there are a lot of answers that in my head got answered last week.
Yeah, but then there's also the question of when do you want to jump on them? So, I mean, we don't need to turn this into a wildcard discussion. You can wait 2 weeks for Salah.
Then it's a fixture play. Yeah,
you can wait 2 weeks on Villa. That's the point.
Yeah, then it's a fixture play for sure.
That's right for wildcard. Any short-term punts for the next few weeks? We already covered most of them.
Yeah, I think in defense, if you had to sell Chilwell, and let's say if it was a 1 week punt and you can't get to Trippier, where else would you go? A 1-2 week punt.
Quick scan of the fixtures. Probably Zuma.
That's the first thing that comes to my head as well in terms of Zuma.
Just because Shed, please. Whatever happens, I can't recommend Tarkowski. Because even though the fixtures are good, you have that 15-pointer there lurking, right? But I just can't do it with any semblance of reason.
I want to mention again, Doughty. Doughty's the guy. He's the...
But that Giles guy, right? Isn't he a threat to Doughty?
He can start.
He can start, but he's just showed enough, and it's a
short-term punt. Because I think Kabore
punt
is a little bit more nailed now than he was a few weeks ago from comments and performances. So that position there is a little bit rotation prone.
Yeah, fair.
Not much else in defense. I think midfielders, you already discussed the short-term guys, Darwin, etc., etc. Move on to our teams.
Yeah, let's move on to our teams. Before we move on to our teams, a quick couple of plugs.
Yes, let's do the FCA plug, especially we nearly forgot about that.
Yes, guys, firstly, thank you for making sure that we're nominated for the Football Content Awards in 2023. Really, really grateful for all the support votes. People have started voting since yesterday on Twitter as well. And it's just like every time I'm logging onto Twitter, people are tagging us and it just puts a smile on my face. So if you've liked the work that we have been up to this season, we are trying to increase the quality and quantity of content. We've upgraded tech, etc. All of that. If you've liked what we've done, make sure you're clicking on the link in the description below. We are nominated for the Best in Fantasy Football Podcast category. So yeah, we'd appreciate if you show your love to us.
And also our Discord, actually, just an update there. So obviously, if you become a member of the YouTube channel or you join the Patreon, you get access to the Discord. And I've mentioned in the past, we have this Discord League, which has monthly prizes. So we're coming to the end of September. And so it's actually fairly close. You have Shakir, who's number one, who's on 94. Last week, he got 94 points, total 238. He's leading in September. Then you have Babatunde Balogun, who's basically only 7 points behind him. And you have Vishal Kuverji, who's another 14 points behind the leader. So there's a few others between 220 and 221. That's total. But within September, there's a few others that are close within this. And one of you guys will be winning, depending on how the next game week goes, a FF Scout membership and an FPL merch mug.
I did not know that Shakir and Tunde are both having such good months. I knew Shakir is currently in the top 1K or no, top 10K or top 1K or something of that sort.
17K. I can see his team here.
Yeah, he's having a really, really good season. One of the nicer contributors on our Discord as well, always really active as well, gives love his insight. So good luck to him and Tunde, and let's see who wins.
Your team up first, LR.
Right, I've got Turner in goal. I've got Kabore, Botman, and Chilwell. I have got Madison, Son, Rashford, Saka, and Sterling, Haaland, and Jackson. And on my bench, I've got Bayer and Estupinan, who are and Pedro, are sort of semi-playable. Contemplating whether I should play Bayer or Chilwell, and I think I'll just see how the news trickles down over the weekend. But Jackson is a priority sell, is what I'm going to do, and it's likely going to be Alvarez or Darwin.
Yep, I wouldn't
definitely not Morris.
Yeah, definitely not Morris, but weird things happen, and if it happens, I will mention it in a short but the reasoning again I mentioned, right? If I was sure of wildcarding next week, I think about Morris more, but I think I want to play the asset that I get for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. I like that.
Yeah.
Move on. This is now, I think, my team. Yep. Areola in goal, Kabore, Sher, Botman defense, Salah, Saka, Rashford, Bumo, Diaby, Haaland, Alvarez. On the bench, Turner, Cash, Archer, Estupinan. Likely rolling a transfer. I don't have any money. If I had some, I'd probably have done Rashford to Son. Rashford to Madison is an option, but I think I'll give Rashford just this game and then probably to do 2 transfers next week. It makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, get Son. You'll want him.
I'm definitely getting him for Luton regardless. But this week, and Rashford to Madison feels like a much of a muchness.
Yeah. Just quick chat while we're doing this about United. Mount started, he was training individually last week and he started training with the team on Monday. So I am expecting him to be close to fitness, this weekend. And the team sheet that we saw against Burnley could be very different to the team sheet we see against Palace at home. Like if everybody is fit that is expected to be fit, I'm expecting Bruno to move back to 10. I'm expecting Mount to move right, Rashford, Haaland, and Casemiro and Amrabat in the pivot is what I'm expected. So that's going to be very different to the team sheet that you saw against Burnley, and Varane's fit as well. So it's likely going to be Lindelof and Varane as our centre backs.
And that's decent. So worth giving a week to Rashford.
Yeah, just wanted to mention the fitness update. That's all.
And generally, he's a home guy, right? I think he scored more goals than any home player bar Haaland last season.
Yeah.
Give him one more game. I do think the Liverpool game will be a difficult game for Spurs. I
think I can't wait for that game. Like I'm expecting 3+ 4+ goals in that game. Just Liverpool, every game that I've seen in the first 30 minutes, they're taking their time to get into gear in games, I've noticed. Where the first 20, 30 minutes, they're conceding lots of chances and just relying on Alisson to pull them out, etc. as well. But so it's good for Spurs attack as I see it. And Liverpool attack have been great as well. So I'm expecting goals in that game. Can't wait for it. Late night kickoff on Saturday, going to be excellent.
Your team, Pras?
So I have got Pickford. This is finally the week that Pickford is going to return the faith by playing Luton at home and give us a clean sheet. And of course, you guys will record this when he concedes. Then I have got Chilwell, Diaz, and Kabore. So Chilwell or Saliba. So depending
Saliba.
on similar to you.
Saliba, easy.
I mean, Chilwell's going to score in the Carabao Cup and then Pochettino will play him again. So there is hope. But I don't need to do anything is basically my point. I can ship him out to Poro next week if I basically need a defender.
Boss, Zoph, what's going to be your back four this week?
I have genuinely no clue, but it'll probably be Colville, Disasi, and he could just shove another centre back there, right? The thing is, right, the reason I think he's been doing this is very hard to identify because the last preseason game you saw Chilwell bombing forward and him playing James there. So one of the theories at Rotation FPL, one of the guys on Twitter who's also a Chelsea fan mentioned, is that Poch likes to do that thing where he puts 3 CBs behind and one of the fullbacks bombs forward, which case it's been Gusto doing that on the right. So it might be that Chilwell gets a nod on the left with a centre back over there on the right side, but he's mentioned now again that he's very happy with Colville playing at left back. So I genuinely have no idea.
Disasi is capable of playing right back, right?
Right, he's played that before in preseason.
So as I just see that entire shift happening from this side to this side, and Chilwell being the more attacking wing back in the same sort of position. Who else is there? Is Badiashile fit? Who else is there? There's nobody else, right, who can play centre back.
I'm not sure Badiashile is fit. I haven't really followed that. I think he's been in training, but I don't think he's nowhere ready to start.
The good thing is, sorry, LR, Gusto is also suspended in the Carabao Cup. So the yellow card doesn't transfer, but the red card transfers. So we will see a back four. If even in that he's found another centre back and not playing Chilwell there, and instead Chilwell is playing left wing, we know our answer. If he's then trying a system where Chilwell is playing left back with Colwell left centre back and Thiago Silva or somebody else, maybe a youngster, and Disasi as right back, then maybe there is hope.
I would still play Saliba though. I think the fixture is good. The Bournemouth one.
Oh, there is one guy on the bench, Pras, I just saw. Cuckoo. He was fit.
Oh, right.
Oh my God.
We have Cucurella.
Oh.
I mean, what has Chilwell done, man? I mean, this smells like how Foden was like inexplicably dropped and then later we found out he went to a club or something. Chilwell has done something.
There's also Maatsen.
Definitely.
Somebody in the chat, Dimitri has mentioned there's also Maatsen.
Jesus.
It's definitely a naughty step. It's got nothing to do with he took his lemons or something. So anyway, so yeah, like I said, Pickford, Chilwell, Diaz, and Kabore. I'll decide between Chilwell and Saliba. Saka, happy with. Son, happy with. Rashford, happy with. Sterling, happy with. Mbumo, happy with. Although he played right back for a little bit.
Right wing back. We have to talk about that. Let's see what happens the next few games.
You cursed him is what happened.
I broke him.
Exactly. So yes, he is one to monitor. And then Haaland and Alvarez.
And transfer plans?
No, so I'll save this week. Next week, the plan is Saka to Maddison and Chilwell if Chilwell doesn't play, then Chilwell to Poro. So then I'll have my 3 Spurs.
You have one free transfer, Pras?
This week, one.
And can you afford Chilwell to trips? No.
No, he dropped. So now I can't.
Question for you guys, because a lot of people will have this sort of situation. If you have money in the bank for a Rashford to Son, would you do it?
Yes. I'd do it.
Probably.
More functional team.
Probably.
And again,
more functional team.
This is a good lineup. This is almost, you could say, a better matchup for Son than it is Sheffield United at home.
Yeah.
It's home game. Yep. Home game matters. I mean, they're good at White Hart Lane.
Yeah, that was the primary question I had, because I think a lot of people who've solved the Jackson problem already might be having this dilemma this week.
I do it.
But it's not a priority. Like I like Palmo's question. Like, we'll rank the following in priority: getting rid of a Chelsea asset, getting Trippier instead of a Chilwell, getting Son instead of a Rashford, or getting Salah. Like it's these are all interesting things, but you can say none of them are emergency things.
1 and 2 probably, if you could do it together, that would probably be the best move. I think if you can do Chilwell to Trippier this week, I like that as a move more than Rashford to Son.
But let's say if you've already wildcarded, then it's a different question. If you've already
Yeah.
wildcarded, or if your wildcard horizon is not there, then the two players I target first are Salah and Son. No doubt about it. Like they are the two primary targets on my team horizon if I'm not wildcarding in the short term, is where I am. Like I would forego Trippier, like you did on the wildcard, and I think it was the right decision, irrespective. Not the right decision, but it was a reasonable decision. You know what I'm saying?
There's some comments in the chat that Saka hasn't trained since the derby. Something we need to monitor what the situation is by the weekend, because he fell awkwardly and had to be subbed off. So in which
And we
case that
forgot to
happened.
mention.
So we might do Saka to Madison, bring that move
I think we
forward
all will do that.
a week early, right?
Correct. We all will do that, I think. And this is why I didn't move Chilwell to Trippier. Again, I saw a lot of people on Sunday night were debating this before Chilwell drops. It was because this Saka news was out, and this is not the time to be, if Saka is injured, you need to take him out. You need somebody with higher upside. It's midfield, prime realistic.
And even Madison, we need news. The thing is, Spurs don't play in the Carabao, so we probably won't get that information till Friday.
Yeah, but we're generally getting pretty reasonable Spurs news without Ange hiding, so I'm not too worried about news emerging, irrespective.
Correct.
It's actually, yeah, you're right. Sam Dean has just reported he's not been able to participate in training. It's possible he's not available against Bournemouth. Oh, so it's actually more concrete.
Correct. So yeah, the chat keeps us updated.
Saka replacements?
Mado if fit. Apart from that, probably West Ham.
Yeah.
Or Diaby.
Jeez.
Because again, because quick look at the ticker. This is sorted by difficulty over the next 6 weeks. Diaby is right on top, but again, wildcard horizon matters. Brighton isn't great. Immediate gratification is coming with the Sheffield United guys.
Yeah. Or Phil Foden.
Sorry, West Ham guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Phil Foden. I just want to throw a name in there. It was good. Actually, it's something that we haven't just discussed. I think want to just briefly touch on that, because the understanding between Haaland, Alvarez, and Foden is really, really good at the moment. I think Grealish will have his work cut out trying to get back into the team, because Doku offers just something else in this formation, in that team. And one shrewd sort of pick that has skipped us, and maybe we might not look at right now, is Walker. Because with Bilva injured, Walker's going to consistently play on the right wing as a winger only. It's pretty much as a winger.
It's a different role. He's mentioned also recently compared to last season where they're doing the thing of the tucking inside with the right back. And he's mentioned now I have a lot more license to bomb forward.
Yeah. And even Foden in Match of the Day, he mentioned that he's been developing a great relationship with Walker as well. So that sort of chemistry is developed on the right hand side, where I think Pep has worked out Phil's best position is not really 10 in the De Bruyne position. It's sort of this mid half space sort of position. It works for him. So yeah, could be one thing FML FPL mentioned is actually Foden tends to do really well in these tough sort of fixtures. So if Saka is out, also a consideration is Phil Foden, I reckon.
If we do get some sort of news, Saka will put out a shot or something with a quick Saka replacement thing. Let's wait for that news. It's a Saturday deadline again, and I think Arsenal also play on Saturday, so we might get some sort of news whether he's traveling, stuff like that.
Honestly, I would not. If he's on Friday also, this guy is saying that he's dicey and Madison is fit, I won't even think twice, even if he's starting, because he could get limited minutes, right?
Correct.
He could get a 55th minute sub.
And we know this whole thing with the Achilles thing, all right?
They have City after, so why would he take a chance?
They can easily manage Bournemouth.
So it's actually good that it's come up, that we've actually had our chance to give our thoughts. I would not think twice. I would just do Madison straight away.
In my case, you just hold Saka, play Bayer, and sell Jackson anyway, right?
Okay, because you have a red card there, right? You probably take care of that first.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the assets. There are better assets available as striker compared to midfield, maybe, right? Like I think Foden and Ward-Prowse in midfield for me, since I own both Spurs, and Alvarez, Darwin up front.
Correct.
Bruno, I don't think we should ignore him completely. 3 good games.
Yeah.
Bruno's
3 good
not
games,
bad.
and I want to see what Amrabat playing in midfield does to, because that's much different from Eriksen's legs, and it's having 2 solid bases. The pivot, it might give him more freedom as well. Like we were terrible against Burnley, and Bruno literally said that, you know what, like you guys are terrible. I'm going to have to do the job today. And he was the only one literally creating, doing anything.
There is a world if Madison is not fully fit that I do Saka to Bruno. I miss Bruno. I sold him 2 weeks ago.
Fair.
I'd probably go Bowen because again I like home to Newcastle as well right after PSG.
Bowen's a good pick, just irrespective, a good pick at this point now. Like West Ham are impressive, man. Like that entire team just works. Like, even Paqueta, he's got the base of Alvarez and Suchek. Alvarez can pass primarily, and he's also creating so much and has the right guys to create too. Just they've been impressive. I've looked at them, except for that City game. Every other game they've looked decent.
Agree. Much better team than last year.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap up. Good to go for now.
Any last words, guys?
Hit like and subscribe.
FCAs, please. I really appreciate it. There's some really good nominations there, but if you can consider us, there will be a link in the comments, in the description. So please, if you like our stuff, do vote for us.
Thank you. We appreciate your vote. Like and subscribe. See you guys next week.